Welcome to the FanDuel TV studios. It is time once again for Wire to Wire. I'm Christina Blacker, joined by the Sarge, Nick Hines. I think this is our 10th show of the year. It's been fun each and every month. Lots of wins to recap. But can we take a second to sort of bask in the glory of the Breeders' Cup and Flightline? I didn't get a chance to hear your reaction. No,
absolutely. This is, one point in time you always look and you ask yourself of a reaction, and what type of reaction would you anticipate if something were to come to fruition, much like a rocket launch would be, for example. But in this particular case, I can tell you that the feeling, it was spine tingling, and when he shifted into third, fourth gear, it took me to a whole nother extreme. And I can't imagine as a trainer for John Sadler, where do you go from here, or the ownership group? And, to see what happened at Keeneland just after at the sale, as far as going into the metaverse or whatever it may be, I think at the end of the day, it's pretty miraculous. $184 million valuation.
It was emotional for me. I was lucky enough to be there for our team as part of the player show, and as he kind of kicked clear from Life is Good, I just felt very overcome. It was like this amazing moment of seeing something so special. If you haven't had a chance to see the video that World Horse Racing put up on Twitter, where Terry Finley was very emotional watching him finish up, I would definitely recommend that, because there's so many times, Sarge, where these horses really move us to pure joy, to tears in a good way, and I think this was one of those experiences.
Well, and I think the other point, knowing that likely this was going to be his curtain call on the racetrack, of course, his legacy will live on in the breeding shed. But in this case of Flightline, there will be no sequel, no Top Gun to Maverick, Rocky 2, whichever it may be. We're going to move on and hope that we can. Let's hope MyRacehorse can come up with a prized possession here in 2023 that'll take us to that extreme.
I had a chance to meet a lot of MyRacehorse owners at the Breeders' Cup. Was happy that many of you could be there to enjoy those 2 days of racing as well. Let's look back on some of your winners from the last month as well. So we're going to start with Phantom Ride. Here's the son of Candy Ride for Steve Asmussen. A winner last out, Sarge, and I like the improvement from start 1 to start 2.
No, absolutely. And I think when you look at Steve Asmussen with some of these youngsters that he's had, it's about just, putting that foundation into him, not so much by the training thing and aspect of that, but getting a race in tow. And you can clearly see that the race in tow benefited greatly, and Phantom Ride will swing back around and enter into winner's land here in the coming week.
I think if you look at Steve Asmussen and his training, and you listen to a lot of his interviews, he talks not only about training these horses physically, but mentally too. He's really dialed in to their progress, I think, on both levels. Yeah,
and I think that, again, each horse is of their own individual, and that's the amazing thing about Steve Asmussen. When you look at the amount of races that he's won, he's sitting at the winningest level. He's increasing that margin seemingly on a daily basis, whether it be a $5,000 claimer or a grade 1 on championship Friday or Saturday. He certainly seems to have, with a great group of employees, seems to have bases covered. And he loves it. He loves every aspect of it. I can remember being at Keeneland in September. Steve Asmussen is looking in book 5.
Right.
Come on.
Truly passionate about what he does, Steve Asmussen. Okay, I know we're not supposed to be biased, but obviously I'm pretty excited about the next one we're going to recap. Straight No Chaser. My husband Dan trains this guy for MyRacehorse. He's now a 2-time winner in 3 career starts and also on dual surfaces.
Well, this was a big bounce back for Straight No Chaser, son of Spicer, and certainly a horse that is purchased as a 2-year-old in training at Timonium in Maryland. He's developed nicely, and kudos to Dan and the efforts that he put forth, earning a 91 Beyer speed figure. This is the effort you look for, subbed 116. Outstanding run here from a horse that, as you mentioned, 2 for 3. The sky's the limit, potentially looking, and there is that man giving those high fives. You have to love this post-celebratory. This is what it's all about right here.
Absolutely.
The effort we were all hoping for, but optimistic going in the gate. What do you take us through the race? Your thoughts after talking to Edwin Malnata?
I was really pleased with the way the horse handled it this time round. Like at Delmont, that last race, he got real hot and going to the post, and he got real hot going to the post, and today he was way more relaxed in the post parade and going to the gates. Edwin said he stood really well in the gate. When I saw him broke sharp and get to the lead, I felt way more confident. I knew that he was going to be pretty tough. The way he's been working so strong. I felt like once he got to the lead and he got settled, even though the fractions are fast, I thought it's going to take a really good horse to beat him today. So I'm thrilled, but congrats to everyone.
Nice win there, and as you mentioned, Sarge, 91 by our speed figure for straight no chaser. He'll be working back in the next couple of days. We'll look forward to what's next.
Well, I think the biggest component of what we just saw is not only the fact that he's able to get back on his A game, because that was a serious effort there, but the fact that he's able to win on 2 different surfaces in a short window. It's a tremendous thing, and certainly something that we greatly anticipate. Perhaps the day after Christmas could be the end-of-year target, the Grade 1 Malibu, with all the 3-year-olds being sold or essentially sent to the breeding shed. There might be an opportunity there for straight no chaser. Let's hope.
It'd be a great way to continue to celebrate the holidays. Let's turn to Laneway. He's always been one of my favorites as well for the Hall of Famer Richard Mandella. He's picked up some very important graded stakes placing as of late, and now a win most recently on November the 6th over Breeders' Cup weekend.
Well, he was just one jump away from the Breeders' Cup winning you're in that Grade 2 Eddie D, but you have to really credit Money Mike Smith here, Hall of Fame rider. He put him in the hunt, the early fraction, especially that half mile. For him to be up and close here was a tremendous effort. He's already tripled last year's earnings. How about a horse that's 3 for 15 in a career, 13 of which in the trifecta?
Surprisingly, I was on the lead, but I thought he would be forward today. There wasn't a whole lot of speed. I thought he'd be laying third, honestly, but he jumped extremely well today, and he was so happy up there, and I just can't get in the way of a good thing, man. I just had to go with it. It was too nice, but he fought him off. Hey, I don't think he's going to let him by if we win another couple hundred yards. He wasn't going to let it run by.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Love seeing that smile from the Hall of Famer Mike Smith. Still just get so much enjoyment and such a thrill out of each and every race out there.
Yeah, and you got to give big credit to Richard Mandella, Hall of Fame trainer, and his team, of course, his longtime assistant and son, Gary Mandella. He's been very patient with this horse. You know, he's had some physical infirmities. You had to have been patient. So kudos to the partnership. Laneway, one of the original G's in the program here with MyRacehorse, of course, owned exclusively, earned a 93 buyer speed figure. And next up, let's get back into some graded stakes action for the son of Into Mischief.
He's ready for it. November 6th was a good day for MyRacehorse out there at Santa Anita, and especially with Mike Smith. Hero status, able to get another victory. He makes it back-to-back now. The light bulb has gone on. I know we were patient with this horse, but he is dialed in now. Well,
he's certainly dialed in. It was a little bit of a curious move to add blinkers off the win. That's not something you often see. In fact, it's a bit unorthodox, but Hall of Fame rider Mike Smith making a double on the day, and this time for trainer Mark Glatt and hero status in a partnership with Dan Agnew. Over $2,500 investors and partners here. This is exciting.
Honestly, he'd probably rather follow somebody because he'll focus better that way. When he gets on the lead by himself, he just tends to look around. And I mean, if he would have just really got down to it, he probably would have opened up and go ahead and won. But that was a nice horse he beat, so that's a good test there today. Next time we'll have a little more of a target, and I think he'll even focus more.
Fantastic, thank you.
Couple of wins at the mile distance for hero status. We'll look forward to what is next with him for the Mark Glatt barn. Let's keep with that theme, kind of talking about Breeders' Cup weekend. I was able to be a part of the breakfast at the Breeders' Cup show for our team and for the Breeders' Cup team. And one morning, Kate and Bradar had a very special interview with a MyRacehorse owner. Let's take a listen to that right now.
For the second straight year, going to Vegas is going to the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf, ladies turf, and we have one of the partners in MyRacehorse representing all the way from California, Kristen Hubeck. Kristen, first of all, welcome to Kentucky. I understand this is your first visit here. How do you like it so far?
It's been amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better experience so far.
Now, you've been involved with MyRacehorse since the very beginning. Tell me a little about what led to you jumping in.
I went to the track one day at Santa Anita, and they were out there advertising it, and I didn't think it was real. And then I saw that they had a horse with Richard Mandella named Tiz a Magician. I love Tiz now, and I figured if Richard Mandella would work with them, they must be legit, and so he was my first purchase.
And now, 20 horses later, I understand?
Yes.
What is it that keeps you coming back?
The experience, the friendships I've made. I've gotten to meet the trainers, the jockeys, been in multiple winner's circles. I live near Santa Anita, so I go out for mornings, works there. I get to visit with the horses. It's been brilliant.
Special thanks to Kristen Kubek for taking the time to talk to Kaiten and being a part of the breakfast show. She talked a lot about the experience with MyRacehorse, about going to Vegas specifically, and was just a wonderful spokesperson for everybody, I thought.
Well, I think so. I think she epitomizes what the ownership is with MyRacehorse to a T. You know, the passion. She's obviously lives near Santa Anita, being out there in the mornings at Santa Anita. I think that's the biggest aspect of MyRacehorse that we try and convey is it's not only the transparency, but the fact that this is, you know, this is all about the experiential aspect of it. So when you invest, when you come in, you're an investor, you're a partner. I think it's important. It's much like anything. You know, you have children, you go out and enjoy and be part of the journey. And I think that she epitomized that to a T. I enjoyed that interview quite a bit. And that's the thing about MyRacehorse. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the experience. And at the end of the day, you walk away and say, you know what? I want to do this again.
There were so many experiences to be a part of during Breeders' Cup weekend. We wanted to share some photos with you for some of those events. Maybe you were there. Maybe you'll make a trip in the future. There was a lottery to be a part of the Breeders' Cup breakfast, to go to the breakfast tent and enjoy the mimosas, the spread that they had there, and just to meet some of the connections of all of the Breeders' Cup runners. On Thursday at Fasig-Tipton, a nice party and a handicapping session just to sort of get everybody dialed in and ready for Friday and Saturday. There was a yearling parade, taking a look at some of those young horses from the first crop stallions that we're going to get to see at the sales in the coming months. On Saturday, in the Phoenix Room at Keeneland, a few lucky MyRacehorse owners were able to sit there and enjoy the races. And then on Sunday at the sale, 100 MyRacehorse guests were invited to a tent there to watch racing throughout the day, to meet other partners and owners, and luckily for them, to also watch Lane Way and Hero Status win together amongst everybody.
Yeah, no, it made for the perfect weekend out there in Lexington, Kentucky, and you know, no better place than right there in the heart of the bluegrass to celebrate, and be participatory. And that's the thing, you know, as I said about the events, it's important if you have the opportunity to get out and be part of it. It's not just investing and kind of sitting back and seeing what your horse does, but it was great. A big thank you to Fasig-Tipton. They opened up the doors. It was great to have the yearling show as well. I thought that was fantastic. Not something you see with other partnerships and syndicates in a process. So well done, and a big thank you to all of those, including Caitlin Dunn, who helped put the program together, and to be in Cone, our good man, Roderick Walkman, and of course, our West Coast racing manager and manager for Edge, Joe Moran, Joe Mishak included.
Let's keep an eye on the sales and talk to you about a few updates that happened most recently. And keeping with the theme of going to Vegas, gosh, look at her just posing for the pictures out there. She sold for $1.5 million to Northern Farm, that's of the Yoshida family in Japan. One of the biggest farms in all of Japan, over 1,000 horses there, and she will have some of the best care, that is for sure.
It'll be exciting. And obviously going to Vegas certainly it enlightened us with two Breeders' Cup runs, multiple Grade 1 winner, daughter of Golden Sense, and, you know, again, props to that spendthrift stallion. But I think she'll be an amazing producer. And a big thank you to our partners at Medallion, Phil Shelton, of course, Bing Bush at Abadanza. I don't think in a culmination, as they collaborated, all three groups, I don't think you're going to have a more jubilant, excitable, frenzied. I guess there are so many words to put. It was interesting to see her because she won in 3 different sets of silks. She won in the MyRacehorse silks, she won in Medallion silks, she won the Abadanza silks, which is not something you always get in this game. So big thank you to Going to Vegas. We love you. Best of luck in your new endeavor as a mama. I'm excited to see what she does.
She's the poster girl for what bringing these syndicates together can mean, and bringing so many people together. All of those exciting opportunities. We had to watch everybody celebrating her wins and celebrating her sale as well. Looking forward to her babies on the track in the future. Also, Amore sold for $400,000 to Green Acres Farm. Some nice, authentic youngsters. The Weanlings selling the Half to Cyberknife for $575,000 went to Whisper Hill. That's Mandy Pope. You'll definitely see that one out on the track in the coming years. And at Keeneland November, Dolce Note, she's in full to authentic. She sold for $260,000. Good signs for the authentic offspring in the future.
No, absolutely. I think when you look at his Weanlings, for example, 13 on average have sold for $242,000 with a median of $230,000. Mares in full, there were 9 sold here in 2022, average of $250,000. He just stands for 60 300,000. So I'm greatly anticipating what the future holds for that son of Into Mischief. Horse of the Year certainly took us on a magical ride. Look forward to seeing his babies develop.
Let's bring it back to the horses in the stable right now, those that we are looking forward to. Work of the month comes to you from Tufnel, the son of Into Mischief. He's with Kevin Noltemeyer at Silver Springs out there in Kentucky, still preparing before heading in to the barn. He went 3 furlongs and 39 on the 4th of November. Nice work for Tufnel, and we look forward to seeing him into some serious training in the near future.
Yeah, Tufnel, if I recall, Spinal Tap related, there's some name within. You have to kind of look to Joe Mishak, who's been quite... he's been quite imaginative with his names and creative, but you know, this being a $300,000 yearling purchase in a partnership with Spendthrift and the Brad Cox Colts Group, so looking forward to a Tufnel. Just an April foal, 2020 model, so certainly nice to see him getting into gear out of that Grand Slam mare count to 11.
I had the chance to visit Silver Springs a couple years ago. Really enjoyed my time there. It's a great place for a young racehorse to grow up. They take their time with them, and you'll see this progression each and every week, each and every month as they become more serious athletes and ready for more serious training. Once they come into the barn, then we can start talking to them about them as our stable spotlights. My stable spotlight is Balletic this month. She's a daughter of Into Mischief. She's with Todd Pletcher. Again, big congratulations from all of us to Todd Pletcher for all of his success at the Breeders' Cup, having both Forte in the Juvenile and Malathaat in the Distaff in one of the best races of the weekend with that 3-horse photo. This daughter of Into Mischief has been working well. Remember, she sold back at the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale for $450,000. She's at Palm Meadows right now in South Florida. And we're going to take a look at a little work here not long ago. She's actually going to be entered pretty soon. Sarge, we're hoping for a November 18th race at Gulfstream Park.
I believe she did make it into the entry box there. And, you know, you had a horse that, had a few little stumbling blocks early on. I think part of that is just being a young horse and in the process. But this daughter of Into Mischief out of the Borrego mare, Rickety Rackety Russ, you have to like what you're seeing here. She's certainly giving you some evidence that she's got some talent. And, again, purchased out, as you mentioned, the Fasig-Tipton Select, $450,000 from the consignment of TaylorMade. Edgar Zayas, I believe, will be enlisted to ride. Balletic, certainly, this is one I'm very excited to see her make it onto the racetrack first out.
50-4, well in control for that breeze, as you saw as well. So Balletic, my stable spotlight. You're going to take a look at the daughter of Gunrunner, 63Caliber.
Yeah, you have to, again, 63Caliber, we've mentioned this on our previous shows, our CEO and founder, Mike Behrens, he probably has a wall pasted with 63Caliber photos, what she's done to date. She was part of the Future Stars stable, and she is coming off of that Seneca Falls victory and been freshened a bit by trainer Tom Amos. And looking back at the win on the 24th of September, it is interesting to note that for a filly who had the throat surgery and having that setback, you know, she did a fair amount in a short amount of time. I mean, you consider the fact she's earned $173,000 between the month of June into September. She ran June, July, August, September, and riding a 2-race win streak, including, I thought, a better than look fourth in the Grade 3 Indiana Oaks. So in a partnership with Spencer, what can you say about 63Caliber? What can you say about Gunrunner? The future does look bright for her. So potentially, I believe it's Thanksgiving weekend at Churchill for some greatest stakes action, but they're weighing options as she continues to develop nicely. It'll be interesting to see how she develops into her 4-year-old season.
You mentioned Spendthrift. I just wanted to make a quick note. I was able to be there for the unveiling of the B. Wayne Hughes Visitor Center over Breeders' Cup week. If you're in Kentucky, if you're heading out to watch any of your horses run, please take the opportunity to go and take a look at the Visitor Center. You can book that through any of the different Kentucky travel websites. They'll take you through. Of course, you look at the farm, you see some of the horses, you see authentic, and you can enjoy all of the racing memorabilia that they have there at the B. Wayne Hughes Visitor Center, as it is now open to the public and to bring people through and teach you a little bit more about racing, about Lexington, about the farm itself. Okay, we're moving on. That was our stable spotlights of the month. And now to something that you know a lot about, actually, Sarge, Inside Scoop. We're going to talk pinhooking, weanlings, yearlings, 2-year-olds. Another way of gambling, I guess we could say, right?
Well, it's much like folks would look at being in the stock exchange. You hope to buy a stock at a certain point, then you sell. And the pinhooking, you know, kind of predicated on the idea that you purchase to sell with the idea of doing just that. And there's several phases of it. I mean, I've known folks that would go out and buy mares and essentially turn them eventually. But we see a lot with weanlings to yearlings, yearlings to 2-year-olds in training. And obviously, when you go yearlings to 2-year-old training, there's a lot of liability that leads into that because you're doing much breaking and as far as training, and there's a lot that goes into it. Whereas weanlings to yearlings, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, this is Duke of Love, just his sales record. So you kind of want to read it from the bottom up. He was a $15,000 weanling sales purchase. Then as a yearling, he went for $40,000, so you made a little bit of money there. And then again, to a 2-year-old sale, he sold for $85,000. Another good example would be Search Engine. Now, the person who bought her came in at the yearling stage. So again, read it from the bottom up. She was a $100,000 yearling, but this was a big pinhook into those 2-year-old sales for $625,000.
Yeah, and he certainly, for Demeric, they've been very successful. Julie Davies, you know, she's also been very successful there in Ocala. So, yeah, basically purchases a Keeneland Timber yearling, and this is a lot what we see, and you see Mockmer Hall involved. You know, Kerry Brogdon has been so instrumental in a big aspect in the game as far as breeding is concerned. We had, for example, Mo Mischief on a previous program in retirement. So it is a process that does involve buying, selling, pinhooking, and you know, on a personal level, I've had some success. On other days, it's again, you have to get a little lucky. But I found that with the shortage in foal crops, as we've seen over the course of the past decade, you're really starting to see yearlings as far as short yearlings, weanlings to short yearlings to yearlings. That is a number that people are starting to really look into.
You're kind of using your crystal ball, right? You're looking at horses physically, you're looking at their pedigree, and then trying to go ahead and get an idea for what that horse will be worth in the market in the future, but hoping that you can spot something or find something in the early stages and take that chance that maybe someone with an untrained eye or a less experienced eye might not see.
Yeah, I think when it pertains to weanlings and yearlings, you really do have to have a crystal ball, but there's also the pedigree aspect. When you look at a pedigree, you note that a sibling maybe just won a graded stakes race or perhaps is developing nicely that is unraced, so you kind of have an insider's perspective on something as a horse like that. But with the 2-year-olds in training, it's all about performance. It really is. I mean, you buy a yearling, you better buy an athlete and a horse that could go out and perform. And again, that's where the liability comes into line. But it's a numbers game. It's not like you're going to go out and buy one horse and make $10 billion. But the Green Monkey was a horse that comes to mind back in the day.
Worked out. We're going to switch gears to our racing jargon. So we're talking about workouts here and the different ways that they can be designated. If you look through the racing form, you'll see an H for handily or a B for breezing. But what's so interesting about this is that whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, people tend to treat them differently, to assign a different description or way of, you know, taking that information and using it to figure out whether a horse is going to run well or not. Sarge, I have to be honest, I understand handily and breezing. I don't understand why we treat it so differently East Coast to West Coast.
It's horse racing. I mean, I think that's the best way to explain it. And, you know, it's crazy to think that, you know, maybe in the Midwest they meet them in the middle, but they don't. The Midwest tends to err on East Coast, to whereas when you have a horse listed with a capital H, meaning handily, on the West Coast, that means that horse is under moderate urging or perhaps a little more, whereas on the East Coast, when a horse is listed as handily, that means that they were going with relative ease without urging. Now, on the flip side of things, as you see helicopter money there, when you see East Coast breezing, means that they're under urging. They're under moderate ask without being all out. Now, once in a while, you'll see a capital D, which means driving, which they're under a whip and a drive. And that's common across the board. If it's West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, a D means that they're all in. You rarely see that, if ever. So to differentiate, handily on the West Coast is breezing on the East Coast. Breezing on the East Coast is handily on the West Coast.
Do you personally put much into the B or the H when you're looking at workouts and you're handicapping? Let's say you're just open the form. does that really play into how you are going to assess that workout?
I think it all depends on who the head clocker will be. I mean, if I'm out here on the left coast, and I know it's Russ Hudak, who I believe recently was announced his retirement, I think it all depends on the eye, because you're trusting the eye that is designating an H or a B. And of course, the private clockers, they do more of a grading system or a star system. For example, Bruno on the works, you get stars. For example, Andy Harrington will give you a grade. Horse Race Report will give you a grade. For me personally, I think the wonderful thing is out here on the West Coast, we've got XBTV. Yeah. Now it's gone across the board. So I think you have to trust your own eyes.
I agree.
Just to summarize, H on the East Coast is B on the West Coast. B on the West Coast is H on the East Coast, and it's all the same essentially in the middle for what it is on the East Coast. Got it?
I feel like we're that meme where the numbers in the head are just spinning around.
It's tough, but we get through it.
Watch XBTV. That's what I do. And I think over time you will learn how to kind of gather some workout information for yourself and what you like with a horse, what you don't. It's definitely something that we talk about with handicapping. It's like a muscle. You have to work it. You have to keep trying. You have to keep going back and watching those workouts to figure out whether you think a horse is going to run well or not. Time now for our Aftercare Spotlight. We're going to take a look at a very special organization in Central Kentucky. It's called Riding for Hope. And the inspiration for coming together with Riding for Hope was really when my racehorse lost Vertical Threat. It was a very special horse to the entire partnership. This particular program is designed to improve the quality of life for both children and adults that have disabilities, whether that's a physical disability, an emotional disability, a cognitive disability. And the way they do so is through therapeutic activities with horses. So as the MyRacehorse team got together with the folks at Riding for Hope, they came into contact with a horse by the name of Hutch. He was a gelding that had a very big personality, really friendly, really outgoing, kind of reminded the MRH team a little bit of Vertical Threat. And so for that reason, he has been formally adopted by MyRacehorse for the year. He's learning those therapeutic activities right now and will be going ahead and moving forward as a therapeutic horse in this program in Riding for Hope. So we look forward to more updates with regard to those lessons and then him going ahead and being able to share those skills and hopefully to provide some help for some folks with disabilities. You can, of course, look it up yourself if you'd like to get involved. Again, it's in Central Kentucky, Riding for Hope, but Hutch is the horse for MyRacehorse right now.
Yeah, what a tremendous thing to have. And obviously, you know, in light of Vertical Threat, who unfortunately left us about a year ago, kind of a tragic spill there at Churchill Downs. But, you know, got to give credit where credit is due. Of course, our CEO and founder, Mike Barron's bottom line, horses come first in any way, shape, or form. So it's really nice to see this because I know for me, it wasn't too long ago that I had a bit of a health setback, and I actually traveled to Kentucky, and I needed to be with those horses. Yeah. And it's amazing what horses can do for the soul. And, you know, that's always the big question, you know, what do they do? We don't know. It's a connection. It's a feeling, and a horse does a wonderful thing for your soul. And we're blessed. This is a great thing.
Yeah, I was listening to a series. It's through Peloton called "What's Your Why," and it's something that Ashton Kutcher has put together. And he just kind of asked all these people, "What's your why? What drives you? What motivates you?" I think at the core of it, for everybody in horse racing, it's that connection with the horse. If you are working this schedule, if you are giving up all your weekends, if you are living this way of life, it's that drawn and that connection that you have with the animals that really keeps everybody going. So take a look at Riding for Hope or any other of the aftercare organizations that might be out there in your area, everybody reaching out in the way that they can. Let's look ahead to the upcoming runners for this next month, who we will hopefully be sharing those victory high fives with you on December's show. Here's a look at the lineup, and we will be very busy, in fact, this coming weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mo Temptation for trainer Doug O'Neill. Be exciting to see that one making a debut. Was purchased back at Fasig in Maryland. Do note that Edge with a couple of runners, Swift Tap, Captain Sparrow, a debuting son at West Speightstown. Salute to America for trainer Tom Morley. Going to take a good swing there. And you see Balletic is entered at Gulfstream for trainer Todd Pletcher on the 18th. I'd also like to give a special salute to Spun Intended. Wow, what a debut he had for Edge Racing in a partnership with Muirhut. and he was purchased as well as a 2-year-old in training. So looks like quite a month ahead. Obviously, hero status coming off that big victory in which he earned an 89 Beyer speed figure. Perhaps we'll go to Zia Park. That's a big race there for big money. And Tiz Magician, the OG.
I love seeing his
action.
name up there. Such a cool horse, Tiz Magician, as they all are. Those are the upcoming runners to look forward to here for My Racehorse. I think we can officially say happy holidays, right? By the time I see you next, we'll be through Thanksgiving, looking ahead to Christmas. Anything in particular you'll be celebrating this Thanksgiving?
Well, I think I'm just going to be celebrating the horses. And I'm humbly grateful, of course, having dealt with My Racehorse and what's been an amazing process. And, you know, I'm thankful for that, you know, for the folks that I've met here at My Racehorse and, of course, working with Joe Moran at Edge. And I so much look forward to what the future holds. We've got some really nice young prospects. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and, of course, spend that time with your family. You know, tomorrow's not promised, and I'm looking forward to a winning holiday with My Racehorse and Edge.
We're going to have Thanksgiving in Del Mar, which I'm looking forward to as well. Hopefully a few more winners through
Amen.
the Bing Crosby meet. Have a great holiday yourselves. We'll see you back here again in December on Wire to Wire for the Sarge, Nick Hines. I'm Christina Blacker. We'll see you here in the FanDuel TV studios in about a month's time. Good luck at the races.